Yeah,
What's
let's
that?
start recording. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, May 15th, 2023 PVC meeting. We are doing it remote, so we will follow the same process as we have digitally through done. We have basically three main topics. We have the approve the minutes, as well as we also have a schedule update on all the projects at the tail end of these main topics. As usual, we'll start with the approve the previous meeting's minutes. And do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the vote, and we'll do a roll call by voice. Richard?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Erwin?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. Okay, great. We'll now go to the first main topic tonight, which is the Emery Grover renovation. And Hank or Ken, Hank, start that off?
Yes, Ken will start that off, and Anne is not able to join us, but Michael Grice is here.
We topped off the elevator shaft last week. If you've driven by, you'll see it sticking up through the roof. And they stripped that today, and we'll be covering up the hole in the roof temporarily tomorrow and Wednesday. All but two of the foundation footings in the lower level are completed and have been poured. They were stripping those today. And again, if you've been by the building, you'll see that the staging is complete around the whole building, including up on the roof and around the chimneys. And the bathroom shear walls, those two new shear walls that we had to install, are poured to the second floor now, and those are getting stripped tomorrow. And there's one more shear wall, original shear wall, the south shear wall, that they'll be starting in the next couple of days, so that next week we'll pour the next lift of the three shear walls that remain, along with some of those footings. Things continue to go through approvals, working diligently on getting the steel released, and they're working on some last details on the windows to get those ordered. So that's a quick update. Any questions on where we are, where we're going?
And you had some pictures as well. I don't know.
I attached pictures to the email, so everyone can get a look at the I had pictures both interior and exterior.
I had a question just looking at the pictures. So I'm seeing what I guess is the basement with all that like sand and stuff around, and then those concrete. Those are those foundational footings that you were talking about?
Those are the footings for the columns. Yes, Michael, that's
Okay,
right.
so the columns go in there.
Right.
And then obviously gets leveled out and a floor gets put on probably at that level or what? How,
The footings at the top of footings is 12 inches below the finished floor.
okay,
So you have about 6 inches of gravel and 6 inches of concrete
Got
to
it.
form the floor.
okay.
I have a quick one. As you look out, I know we've come through the pandemic with all kinds of things being slow and late and so forth regarding long lead items. As you look out on the schedule, do you see any particular items that are long lead or potential delays later on? Any thoughts about that?
Right now, no, but there are plenty of long lead items, but as of right now, they fit into the schedule, barely in some cases, but they fit into the schedule. For instance, windows are 16 plus weeks, but we really don't need those until they want to stop putting those in November. So we got a little float there, but some of the stuff it could change overnight, George, as we found previously, is something that we thought was a 8-week lead time item all of a sudden becomes 20. Literally
Yeah.
overnight. So
Well, that's
we're
what
doing our
that's-
best to control it, but there's no there are no absolutes with it.
Yeah, I guess I like the idea of being a little preemptive here. And maybe it would be a worthwhile exercise to identify those items that have only a few weeks of lead time that may be able to be expedited. For example, if your windows
We've
are
already done
16
that, George.
weeks. you've
George, we've already
that.
done that. We've asked the contractor to go through every one of his vendors, looking at all the items, identifying anything that might be long lead times. They did those submittals first so that we could get those approved so they can get the stuff ordered. So we've gone through that exercise already. We did that months ago.
And are there items like the windows, for example, that are butting up against the date, don't have a lot of float in them?
Electrical equipment mostly.
Is there
That's the-
anything we
the-
could do to
is the-
expedite
Is
that?
the other long lead time item. No, there's
Uh,
nothing, no, there's nothing, we've found nothing that you can do to expedite. Once the order goes in, they give you the date and then you're begging after that if you need it.
I see.
The item that we keep hearing about across multiple projects that continue to have lead time items is just everything to do with switchgear and electrical equipment. And, here that's been approved. But other than that, I think a lot of the lead
Switchgears-
time issues have gone away.
Switch gears all been approved
Yeah,
and
PC
And-
cabinet, meters, meter sockets.
Those
Most of the
all-
electrical stuff has been approved and it's been ordered.
okay. Switch gears tough. We ran into some problems with over at Hillside with a number of items there. So no way we can expedite any of that stuff, huh?
Once you're in the queue, you're in the queue. And like I said, after that, you're begging. I mean, we got lucky. Barry actually, his contractor actually grabbed something from one of his other projects to finish ours because he didn't need it at that time. So
Yeah.
actually what we installed over at Hillside was another project. I can't remember what it was, Barry, it was the panel or something, but
It's a
actually
CT
installed
panel.
another project's CT panel.
There
Yeah.
are some times, George, I rejected a submittal that had a very long lead time for lights, and this is for the Pollard locker room. But sometimes you don't have that opportunity to find other products similar to the one, like the windows are very specialized. And a couple of the other things that for this particular project are very specialized, and it'd be very hard to find anything similar that we could get sooner. But there are sometimes opportunities to reject something because of lead time to go after something similar.
Okay. I just don't want to, I just want to be able to say, we looked at everything and tried our best to expedite things that we knew might be a problem. That's all. Okay. We're not out of the woods regarding long lead items and
Nope, not by any stretch of the imagination.
Yep.
And I think we're going to be battling this for a number of years.
okay,
We only have one more year on this project, though.
Right.
I understand. That's
But other
that's-
projects that we'll have to contend with.
Yes.
I know. Anyways,
All right.
other questions from anybody else? Okay,
All right.
with that, Ken, do
can-
we want to go to voting or you want to go to the
No,
budget?
I just want to briefly review the ACL, which was
Okay.
tied to the agenda. The first item, you've seen the shear walls. It was a $52,000 item, I think, previously on the ACL, but linked to that in a bulletin was some other framing work, structural changes, missing joists, and the like. We're trying to push this number down, this 168,000. But there's no guarantee. The contractor's working at it. This is the maximum exposure, but we're going to try and cram this down as best we can. We've got the asbestos, which you've seen before. That number was 24,000. The additional ACM is 21, but there was stuff that we had anticipated that we didn't find, so we got a credit of 8,600. So the net on the ACM is about 12,500. And then the interior brick, we discussed this at one of the previous meetings. We discovered when the walls were ripped down, the interior brick, the red brick as we refer to it, is in pretty tough shape. And again, this number we're trying to massage down as best we can, but our exposure, maximum exposure on this is 131,000. To either remove and replace some brick or do some grout injection in behind the brick. We're trying to find a happy medium that will work economically for us.
131,000?
Yeah,
So what you
literally every window, George, has roughly 8 square feet of brick underneath that has to be removed and replaced. And the number works out to approximately $70 a square foot, which is in line with some of the unit prices we received during the bidding process.
And that's something that we didn't know.
Nope, because it was all covered up by sheetrock on the inside of the building.
Ah. Another one of those hidden gems.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So. Any other questions there on the ACL?
I'm afraid if I ask any more, there'll be another.
You're right.
You got me worried here.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the ACL, how does the contingency look given what the most recent findings
Yeah, I need to,
are?
if you'll excuse me for a sec, I'll put my cheaters on because I can't read my small print. Incorporating these worst case numbers, we're about 2,352,000 on a slightly less than $24 million. Well, the actual construction budget is, before I get myself lost here, construction budget's 15 million. So we have pretty close to 15% left of the construction budget left with contingency.
And is it fair to
Not
say we
Too bad.
are starting to trend downward and possible more surprises?
I hope so. We think we've got the building ripped apart, so there's not too much more hidden, unless we uncover something when we're doing excavation of the drain line, the sewer, the water line, etc. But everything else has been done. I mean, there's little things here and there. We find that a beam doesn't line up in the right place. We've got to add a plate or add a lintel or something like that. But that's generally small dollar compared to some of the ones that you see in the ACL now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I think that sounds okay to me at this point. You're right. Once you've opened up, the hidden gems are the ones that I worry about, and we've opened up enough so that we shouldn't see too many more of those.
All right.
Okay.
Stuart, barring anything,
Yep.
any other questions, we can go to the voting items.
Okay. So,
Actually, I have one question, Mr. Chair, for me.
yeah, go ahead.
Ken, on the interior brick, since it's covered by sheetrock, are there opportunities for value engineering? Is there a less expensive alternative to brick replacement?
It's a structural issue, Richard. It's not
Oh, okay,
not a cosmetic issue.
got it. Okay.
And just as I was listening to you, George, is that I think everything's been opened, right? Ken? I mean, what
Yes.
else is there to open up? Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
the-
think we're, knock on wood, I think it'd be a really big surprise if something were to crop up. Okay, great. So from that, we'll go to the voting items. We have 4 voting items. The first one is the major invoice for requisition number 5 for O'Connor Contracting through April for $421,796.44 coming out of the general contractor budget. So I put forth the payment the invoice of that. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Erwin,
Aye,
Michael,
Aye.
and Ann is not here, so the chair is aye. Okay, great. Going to the next one, which is the invoice for BH&A for March 2023 for $17,392.86 coming out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and the chair is aye. The two final invoices I'm going to group together because they're out of the same budget. And it basically is the UTS of Massachusetts April 2023 testing for $2,230. And the Conway office for 2023 materials testing for $1,500 for a total of $3,730 coming out of the miscellaneous budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and the chair's aye. And that is everything to do with Emery Grover. Anything that I missed, Ken or Catherine?
Nope.
Nope. I don't
Okay,
think so.
great. Okay, any last minute topics on the Emery Grover? Okay. No, just anything we have to do with Ridge Hill, Ken, because you added two pictures in there.
I
for Ridge
I
Hill.
just put the pictures in there just so you could see
Fine.
the,
Okay.
we're just now it's wait for the grass to grow.
Okay, fine. All right. With that said, we'll close down the Emery Grover topic, and we will now move to the theater sound and light study and turn that to you. Hank?
Yes, yeah,
Senator Brand?
I'll start in. In our last meeting in April, we had a final presentation that Brandon put together. I can repeat that if and as needed. The study, you all received a link to download the completed study. And as you may recall, there were several categories of improvements that need to be done. There are some immediate issues that, well, the school department has reviewed that report, and they're looking to address the immediate issues this year with current funds, operating funds from the school district. And so HuShot has put together bid documents. The bid documents are now published out on the street, and we contacted 4 or 5 local potential rigging contractors just to alert them to the bids. We because it's a Chapter 149, it means that we had to focus on only the SAC 1 items in order to attempt to try to keep the bid price under 150,000. If it was over 150,000, we would have to get a general contractor involved and go through DCAM certification and all the rest of that. Some of the rigging repairs were completed at the Pollard School over the April break. So the next, and if those bids come in as projected, and if the school budget is sufficient at year's end, we'll also be looking to replace the curtains in the high school theater and in the Newman Theater, and the main curtain in the Pollard Theater through an Massachusetts Higher Education Consortium direct purchase. There are several suppliers that we can go directly to, but we're separating that from the Chapter 149 work. And Leanne, I don't know if you want to chime in and or Brandon. Hopefully I've summarized where we are.
You've done a great job, Hank. You make my job easy. The only thing I wanted to add was the report, I think was well received 2 months ago. The main revision was around the cost savings, particularly sustainability. So that was on page 38. There was some changes there. Other than that, the report is close to what it was before. There was no other substantial changes. The SAC 1 or SAC 1 that Hank referred to was what we identified as safety and compliance related items, and we categorized those into number 1 and number 2. Number 1 was more urgent than number 2. So that's where we're headed with Pollard is done. We'll be inspecting that work on Thursday, the 18th. And at the following that, we have a mandatory pre-bid walkthrough for this work for Newman and Needham High.
And Leanne, I guess the TAC items, well, I should say the SAC 2 items, the school department will attempt to get those done during the following summer. And the theater improvement ones for the lighting, sound and lighting, we'll have to go through the normal capital improvement plan sequence. So those are likely to be a year to 2 years away before completion, unless there's some anonymous donor who steps forward. But I'm not holding my breath.
Well, yeah, I think I'm thankful that everything is on track the way that it is, and I think there is community support to take action on the other items more urgently. So maybe, I don't know what can be done, but it is out there, and hopefully we'll have some community support around it. Yeah.
So for that summer work this summer, we've coordinated with both the schools and with the summer programs, and the work will largely be completed the 2 to 3 weeks prior to the restart of school in late August. So August 7th through the 25th. We really won't know. Hopefully we'll get competition on the bids, and we'll see who shows up on the walkthrough on Thursday. We did make it a mandatory walkthrough, and if it's sparsely attended, we may need to offer a second one and try to get some competition. There was one of the companies, one out of New Hampshire, that had indicated that their summer was fully booked. But I think we'll get at least 2 others that are interested.
It's worth noting that this is extremely specialized work, so there's not a ton of firms out there that do it, and they do tend to book up in advance. So that's part of the strategy on making it mandatory, as well as forcing them to come to site and seeing what the work is and asking the right questions rather than just making assumptions and inflating the price.
So hopefully we will be, we'll see how things unfold on Thursday, and hopefully get all the balance of that work done this summer. I think that's Leanne and Brandon, unless you have anything further. I think that's it for that topic. And we do not have any
Correct, no voting items, right. Any other questions from the committee on this? Okay, Hank, I think we can.
Hank, has the money been confirmed by the school department?
They've confirmed on, well, they're,
Obviously, the April stuff is.
yeah, they've confirmed on the stuff that's out to bid. And believe that the curtain replacement can also be done. But there's some year-end juggling that the school department has to do within their budget. And I know Ann Galati's working on that now.
Anne is very careful about these things, and having the curtains be the last thing means there's some flexibility if she can't, but I think she's working very hard. Looking at how we will end year end, and we've already informed the finance committee and let them know, because we always do some things with year end funds, and these are the typical kinds of things that we do one time. So they know that's what we're planning to do, and use as much as we can get out of year end to get it done.
And I think our intent would be to get pricing on each theater individually. So we could award, I would think the first award would go to Pollard, the replacement of the front curtain there. And then we'll talk to you, Leanne, and others about second priorities. I see.
Erwin, you got your hand. Yeah, Erwin's got his hand up.
Hi, thank you. Where does the lighting fit into the timeline? Because there's clearly explicit in the report some savings in energy expenditures by getting more LED lighting. How does that fit in with respect to the curtains and the theater and sound upgrades beyond the SAC-1 work that's being done?
So the next phase is SAC-2. And after that is when we get into the TSU, or the theatrical system upgrade phases, of which there is 4. 3 of them are what sum to equal the benchmark. So the theatrical lighting at all 3 schools, there is an initial step in TSU-1, but that continues through TSU-2 and TSU-3.
Okay, so it's phased in other words,
It is
the TSU work. Okay,
correct.
And the school department and Leanne and her department will need to probably figure out priorities, and whether the Pollard, if the Pollard overall redevelopment goes ahead, then likely any of the lighting upgrades in that building would be postponed until the full renovation of the building.
Okay. All right, Hank, if there's nothing else, we'll close that topic down.
Yeah.
And we will move to the CAF.
And we have Rachel Young with us, I think. Sorry about the difficulty to many of you for downloading the document. Hopefully you finally got the core section of the report. The report, I had distributed it previously, and then I tried to put in bookmarks to facilitate your going through it, and maybe that's what hampered the distribution. I'm not sure. But in any case, that report was completed by BH+A, and there are various projects that are articulated within that overall study, and they are more or less numbered in priority. I know Tim, and maybe you want to chime in on priorities. The first, I guess, would be the kitchen reworking. And that, as explained in the report, Converting that into a commercial kitchen is important because the Meals on Wheels program is being shut down by the hospital. And so the senior center has to fill in and figure out how to continue that program. Is that a reasonably accurate description, Tim?
Yes. The long-term sort of future of the traveling meals program is in doubt. I think we also think there's some benefit directly for aging services. There's a lot of programs that Latanya and her team would like to work on that would involve, especially expanded hour programs on evenings and Saturdays that would involve food service. Hank outlined that there's a number of projects we sort of tried to find, I think, small dollar value. It's a very gradual evolution, not revolution. But the idea would be that, Hank and I will be working with the town manager's office to figure out where there are spots in the capital plan to put it in, but where we can, get a couple $100,000 here or $1 million there, and how we, over the course of maybe a decade, can implement all, 7-8 of the projects. I think that's the general approach.
Yes, and the other advantage of that is you wouldn't need to shut down the facility while you're doing a more major repair. So that phased in approach can be timed to any low periods that you have during the year, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that, sort of was, I guess, an unofficial rule that we kept in our head was that, we could shut down for a day or 2 or 3, but the idea of shutting down for 3 months was not tenable. Could we close one area for a month or 2 or 3? Certainly possible. But shutting down the building itself, for a long period of time was not tenable. So that's in part why it's a series of limited projects.
And in terms of the second priority, I guess what I was beginning to understand was that the majority of the people who come into the facility actually enter through the back door. What is the back door? And so the improvement with the vestibule is an important one because it will, in the wintertime and in the summertime, it'll keep either the cold drafts from coming in or the hot air from coming into that multi-purpose room. But also there'll be the ability to put in a check-in system there. So there can be a better accounting for who's coming into the building. Because once they come in that back door, they typically don't go to the front desk.
Right. And I think, one of the things that we're potentially excited about is coinciding with the generator install at Cath is potentially restriping part of the back parking lot to have more handicap accessible spaces in closer proximity to the building, as well as, and Hank and I met with the town manager and the select board chair and vice chair sometime last week, last Wednesday or Thursday, to look at space rental from the MBTA. So I think the Cath has always sort of had a peak hour sort of congestion. If you come, first thing in the morning or at the end of the day, there's spaces. But if you come in kind of the 10 to 2, 10 to 3 range, you won't have too many parking spaces. So the idea of being able to add handicap spaces and offset the fact that we lose parking with the generator and by adding handicap spaces with some additional parking spaces, this is a great thing. So that was helpful to sort of, I think, have this project to help push us to make that work with the MBTA. Still not a done deal, but well on its way.
And the town does lease spaces from the MBTA in the downtown lot and other lots. So it's not unheard of. I think there's bickering over a little negotiation ongoing over price and timing. Ever since the pandemic, the lot has never filled up for commuters. So where there's overflow coming from the Cath and particularly the elderly patrons. Don't want them walking too far to get into the building. The other projects, as you may recall, improvements to the exercise room and swapping the game room and the exercise room were important. And I'd like to also thank Rachel for her comprehensive interviews and discussions with many of the working groups to get the feedback, which then led us toward these conclusions. So at this point, while we don't need to have a vote per se, we do want acknowledgement that the committee is receiving the report, that there are no further comments, and then that'll form the basis for future capital improvement plan budgeting and scheduling.
Yeah, let's do that. Catherine, can you get George back in? It looks like he had to reconnect.
Oh,
And he's in the. And then are you looking for a vote, Hank, or are you just looking for a general consensus?
I don't think we need a vote, but as we, well, both in this project and in the theater project, as the projects get split up into different pieces, the amount of involvement that the PBPC maintains versus what goes over to building maintenance department comes into play. And so, for instance, in putting the contract documents together for the improvements in the theater SAC1 items, even though it's well below the $500,000 threshold, building maintenance department project manager helped assemble all of those and will assist in some of the project management going forward. But I don't believe that we need to come back to PBBC to get votes on those projects because they are less than $500,000. And the same might be true depending on how the CATH projects unfold.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if what we do is we have a consensus here where it's, if anybody has an objection to either report, one or both, that we just discuss that. Otherwise, we would declare that finished, Hank, and that basically that would be the guidance for any other subsequent projects. And if we're asked to take that on, we're asked to take that on. Otherwise, that framework within the report should drive any work, whether the building maintenance department does it or anybody else. It's the framework, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Correct.
We can declare the projects, the studies complete from our standpoint. And I'm wondering if anybody has any opinion about that. And if there's no issue, then I think Hank, Erwin.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. So.
Okay. So I think that what I would declare from the chair is that these studies are now complete. And there is no objection to those studies being complete or any further question. And we'll note that in the meeting minutes. Those reports are finished. George, anything from your side?
Oh, I think I agree with Erwin.
Okay. All right, great.
That's great.
And I think
just logistically, Stuart, we will proceed then on the SAC1 improvements, just coordinating with the school department, and we won't bring all those invoices and approvals back to PBBC.
Yep. Okay. Okay, so with that said, we do have an invoice to vote on, Hank. We have one for the cath study, BHNA. We have the BHNA, which I'll put forth for the vote. Excuse me, for a approval is the BHNA April 2023 services for $1,950. Put that forth for a vote. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the vote. And let me just make sure. So Tim's on here. Okay, Tim and Barry. Okay, great. So we'll go through the roll call for the vote. Richard?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
George?
aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. Okay. With that said, before we, so we'll close down this topic, and then I ask the committee that if we can tackle some of these other invoices before we move to the final main topic, schedule update on projects. If you'll allow me, I'd like to put forth, we have the library space utilization. We have 2 invoices there. We have school master plan, 1 invoice, public safety, we've got an invoice, Ridge Hill, and DPW feasibility. So I would like to move forward on those one by one. With the library space utilization, we have a PSS. I'd like to put forth for an approval on that, PSS number 1 for Utile for $5,000 coming out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Irwin?
Yeah, quickly, what is the $5,000 for?
They have gone through several additional iterations on the project above and beyond what we had in their initial scope, and we oftentimes hold back some funding on these early studies, anticipating this kind of issue. So it and what's happening right now is the well, I'll fill you in on further details when we get to the summary of the other projects, but it's getting extended to allow the trustees opportunity to weigh in on the options so far.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Hearing none, coming to the roll call. Richard?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
And chair's aye. We have an invoice for the library space utilization for Utile for their March 2023 services for $10,000 out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the roll call. Richard?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Chair's aye. Okay, school master plan. We have a invoice for Dorr and Whittier. And Michael, you're on the user group for the master plan, correct? I know Ann is, but
Yes, yes.
okay, thank you. I put forth the Dorr and Whittier Architects March 2023 services for $1,700 coming out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the roll call. Richard?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Chair is aye. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move to an invoice on the public safety complex. This is an invoice for Napa Framingham for FF&E bench, $1,750 coming out of the FF&E budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
and the chair is aye. We have an invoice for Ridge Hill demolition. We have the Door and Whittier Architects, March through April 2023 services. $1,125 coming out of the architectural budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
and the chair is aye.
And Barry is
one
also
more.
a member.
Barry,
Aye.
thank you. One final invoice, DPW feasibility study. The Weston Sampson March 2023 services for $8,800 coming out of designer budget. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. In terms of voting, is there any, are you part of that too, Barry? Okay.
No, it's,
Yes. Oh, was
No.
that, I thought they added me, maybe not, maybe it's Shane. It was either Shane or myself.
I think
Oh,
it's Shane.
I'm sorry, it's you and Shane, correct?
Oh, okay, it's both of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. All right. It's been seconded. I see any questions, further questions? Seeing none, hearing none. Coming to roll call. Richard,
Aye.
Lynn,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and the chair is aye. Thank you. Appreciate that, everybody. So in terms of that's all the invoices I see and have. And with that, we'll close down the everything except for, I'm sorry, that now we will move to the schedule updates on the projects to you, Hank.
Okay, and I did forward around an updated schedule. Let me see, I can share my screen. It may be small. Let's see, how do I do that? Not as large as I possibly can. Now that's more legible, but I'll zoom back and forth. So we're continuing to address fire headquarters lingering issues. Ridge Hill, we've already discussed, waiting for the seed to grow.
Can we just back up for 1 second on the public safety?
Yeah.
Is that, so are you saying that by the beginning of June, we will be in good shape?
No guarantees.
Well, nothing's guaranteed in this world, but I think we
Okay.
have to make,
No,
draw
I'll
an
tell-
assumption
I'll
for,
tell- No, it's gonna, we won't be closing that out until August or September.
okay, all right. So, because the last time we asked that question, you thought about September, and now that I see the line is kind of drawing to June, do we have an opportunity to close it down? And this committee likes to close projects successfully, so that's why I asked. Okay, so
Yes, sorry,
You
I
go
will
forward.
I'll extend that blue line.
well, I'm not encouraging you to extend it. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
We're entering on Ridge Hill. We have done the hydroseed. You saw that, and that has to take, and then there's a 1-year warranty after that. Hillside School Department is living well within the space, and air conditioning now I think is fully functional. The Emory Grover we've gone through in great detail. We will be back on the 5th of June for the next invoice. As you know, we only had one meeting in May, so that normally would be sooner. Pollard Lockers, Barry is proceeding with summer construction this summer, and Seaver is the contractor on that one. The Broadmeadow and Elliott RTU replacement, we've received the design development drawings for the Elliott School. We're proceeding with Elliott first. They've completed the DDs. We did get the full funding at annual town meeting, and we expect by the 5th, hopefully by the 5th, to have updated cost estimates to you for the Elliott portion of the project. As you may recall, Elliott has 4 rooftop units that are being replaced, and Broadmeadow has 5. Both projects have some additional work part of the scope, but the intent is to get those bids out this summer with filed sub bids first and then GC bids, so that we could award by the end of the summer or early September, so that we can get in the queue to get those rooftop units ordered and hopefully get the installation complete summer of 2024. In terms of the feasibility studies, we're waiting on MSBA in terms of the school master plan. I don't know, Michael, if you've heard anything.
No, I'm not sure we'd hear for a while. They take months to do their first round of when they get everything in, but I haven't heard anything.
So I probably not until the end of the summer would we hear any inquiries. They normally go out and ask a series of questions and oftentimes do a site visit, but we haven't heard anything further from them. We've gone through the school theater sound and light study, and the rigging bids should be back, and we would hope to award those by the 1st of June, but the work would be done over the summer. We've already discussed the CATH study. Thank you for approving that. Final report on the library space utilization study. George, did you have a question about?
I had a question about the rooftop units. We went by them and I had a question there. Can we go back to that?
Yes,
Can you
please.
hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, the question is, when we put the spec together, we're asking people if they, bidders, if they can do both units next summer?
We are not proceeding that way because of the risk associated with trying to do both schools in one summer. There is concern about the ability to get the units in time for completion even this summer. And after discussion with the school department, they also have summer programs which they need to juggle between the various schools. So we felt it was safer, lower risk, and would also give us a better perspective on how rapidly we can actually receive those. Yes, we lost George.
Let's give him a minute to see if he comes back in.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Oh, there he is.
Okay. So it was, George, it was mainly it was both a recommendation by GGD. They had indicated that they'd done a school that had more than 5 units on it, but they've never done a public job like this where there are two different schools going simultaneously during the summer, and they felt that lead times will be tight just getting the 4 units that we're looking for
Okay,
with Elliott.
so this is going to be a 24 and a 25 summer project.
Correct. And we understand there's likely to be cost escalation for the 2025 Broadmeadow, but we didn't want to risk not having both schools open on time after the summer work.
Yeah, okay.
And any other questions about that project?
Nope.
Okay.
Not here.
On the library, you received a presentation from UTIL that went through 3 options. They took in the feedback that all of you gave. They did some very, very rough numbers, order of magnitude costs associated with the 3. And those order of magnitude costs came in substantially higher than we had anticipated. Sufficiently so much that the highest of them, well, they then took the 3rd option, did some refinements. They removed the stair out of it, but kept the main principles associated with that design by moving the children's room upstairs and the teens room, consolidating those functions on the upper level and then putting the other collections on the lower level. But the very rough numbers they were coming to were pushing the cost of the Emery Grover building. So we backpedaled and are asking them to come up with, and made a further presentation to the library trustees to identify what the most critical elements they felt were and what the priorities were and how the project could be phased over time. A similar approach to what we're taking at the CAF. And so the trustees received a presentation last week on that, and they will have another presentation and discussion. And we intend in early June, and we intend to come back to PBBC with a more phased approach on the 26th, following the trustees' discussion about their priorities. While I think there's some hints as to what those priorities would be, it is more likely to go back to the option 1, which had less of an overhaul of the total building. It kept the children's library area on that lower level, but modifying the teen room seemed to be a high priority. And that's the one that faces toward Rosemary in that southwestern corner of the building. And doing other upgrades in that teen and tween area seems to be one of the highest priorities. I think the second priority, and Stuart, you can correct me if you heard differently, another priority seemed to be putting the reference desk on the upper level closer to the middle of the space, and freeing up space for smaller rooms, the
Yep.
study rooms, which are
Mhm.
very, very heavily utilized.
Yes.
So the intent is to, while there could be a grand scheme, the intent is to come up with a phased approach that could be in smaller bites in a fashion similar to the CAF. Any questions on that?
I can't see anybody, Hank, so you'll have to
So-
look at your screen and see if anybody's asking questions.
Yeah, I have mine reduced mode here, so let's see.
I don't see
Or
any
just,
questions.
okay, great. Just, I think the other thing is if people do have questions, just raise your voice. Because once the screen's up, the pictures of everybody goes away.
So on the Public Works Facilities Improvement Study, Weston and Sampson has had a couple meetings now with the working group at the DPW. That includes the director and Karis Lustig and the department heads, superintendents of each of the divisions. They've gone through an update of the assessment of the program. They have quantified that associated with gross square footage, both of existing and of the needed space. The superintendents are going through some further refinement of that program and verification of the program, particularly associated with the vehicles. This round of study, they're including the Daly building and building maintenance department. So they recently visited the Daly building. And in our last working session, they took some of the preliminary programs and came up with several variations of how different divisions might be grouped together to assess the both the needs of having different divisions together and those that could be a bit more separate. I think that in operationally, there's still, and their next step will be to initiate some site studies to see whether those divisions could all fit on one site as per their prior study, but they are also looking at parcel 74, which is over at Greendale, to see what fits over there. And they're doing other variations where they might have one or two departments or divisions together. For instance, water and sewer and highway might be together, whereas the maintenance department might be able to move out to the RTS. So they're looking at a whole slew of variations like that just to see what fits. They're also, like these other studies, they're looking at ways in which to phase any kind of construction, as it's likely that any new buildings and or renovations would need to be phased over time just because of town budget issues.
Hank,
Yeah.
question. Why are we letting them look at parcel 74 when I thought that was taken off the table substantially? The last time we looked at it, it was decided by the select board to take that off the table for any future DPW buildings. I didn't think that was part of any study that they were going to do.
The town manager has had further discussions with select board and the Park and Rec Commission, who have jurisdictional control over it. And and DPW is the biggest concerns previously with that site were related to traffic coming and going onto Greendale. And as you may recall, 6 years ago, the Kendrick Street overpass hadn't been constructed yet. That exit wasn't finished. And it was an unknown as to how much traffic would be coming from the new residential development that was further down Greendale. I think that what has, now that both of those projects are complete, the traffic impact of those on that section of Greendale has not really materialized the way it was previously. A lot of people would get off of Route 128 and take Greendale to get to work before Kendrick.
They still do. They still do in large quantities because I think the app called Waze is sending people on a routine basis whenever there's a backup, and there's almost always a backup between Kendrick and Great Plain Avenue and 109. And the traffic out there, especially during rush hour, is usually backed up for at least half the distance on Greendale, maybe 3/4 of the distance between Kendrick and St. Bart's. So I think that subject's going to come up again. And we had a lot of people very upset about potential use of that before. It's going to increase, trust me.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna
part
add
of-
to that is that the residents are the ones that also were bringing that up. So I don't
Well,
know if there is anybody that's making them aware of this coming back to the discussion.
Nobody's been aware. I wasn't aware of it. If
I
wasn't
know
aware-
that, George, but I think there should be some level of, I would think that the powers to be should be making something known, because I think that's where the real issue is,
Okay.
the residents. But
And George,
Going to
do
be a
you,
huge uproar.
George, do you, I will alert the town manager tomorrow. I know that there was discussion in public meeting and select board, but obviously not everyone listens into that. And but in terms of that traffic, do you see it mostly in the morning or in the evening?
Evening.
Evening.
I see it both. I mean, I go out in the morning early, and there's, usually around 7:30, 7:45 is when it starts to pick up. If I go down Paul Revere and I try to take a left, I don't do it. And even though there's the construction going on West Street right now, it's not fun.
You can't turn left on, from Paul Revere, you can't turn left on Greendale in the evening because it's so
That
much
too.
traffic.
Yep.
You can't turn left. I have to go down to Nevada and be able to get onto Greendale or Hunting Road down there because I can't get on. And the only reason I can get on there is because there's a traffic light there. It lets me get on. But turning left off of Paul Revere onto Greendale is almost an impossibility at night, but it's not, it's a little better in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But it very often, and I know I use that all the time, the stretch of Greendale between Kendrick and Great Plain Avenue exit, the traffic, if you're coming from the Great Plain Avenue up Greendale toward Paul Revere Road, you can drive half to 3/4 of the way and it's bumper to bumper traffic. And it's because that Waze system sends everybody off that road.
Okay.
It's a tough one.
Good. That's good information. I know that the town the town will be updating traffic counts both in that area and on Central near the RTS. Central Avenue has a similar problem,
Oh yeah, it's brutal.
particularly in the morning. And Dedham has similar problems, mainly in the evening. So clearly there's no ideal place for this. But
Doesn't that tract of land still have to get state approval?
I'm
Does,
I'm
to my
not sure.
knowledge.
I'm not sure about that, George.
I'm pretty sure it does need to get state approval before we can use that for anything.
Unless there's some swap out of associated new lands. But
If that's happened, I haven't heard about it.
In any case, I thank you for that. Clearly, you observe it every day, and we will get traffic counts and verify that. Every site has difficulty, and the other site that Hillside might be looked at as a temporary solution. Again, similar to school admin, if a building is getting renovated or reconstructed, temporary use may be needed, and that's the only site where something could be placed now that we've made these improvements. So that is also being analyzed by Weston and Sampson. So they're going to have multiple variations of both program combinations and site studies. And likely the one that consolidates all functions on one site just won't fit on any of those available sites. So that's part of the issue. And when we come back on the 26th, we might want to have that meeting in person because there'll be a lot of, obviously a lot of detailed discussion, both on the library and on the DPW.
Yep.
So we'll discuss the best location and framework for that. And I think it'd be good to have the full committee, and I suspect town manager will want to be present during that or available during that discussion too.
Are they looking at the site adjacent to the land across from the RTS there?
In Claxton? Yes.
Not next to Claxton, the building next to the cliff there where they sell Christmas trees.
Yes, that I think is under the jurisdictional control of Conservation Commission. So we would have a similar issue there.
Where they sell
but
the
yes.
Christmas, the high school sells the Christmas trees.
Yes, that's all part of town forest, I believe.
Oh, it is. Because it's not used for much of anything that I know of.
Yeah, there's a large jurisdictional control map that I can share with the committee.
There's a building there. Is there anything in that building?
The Parks and Forestry uses it for maintaining the Claxton Field, but it's in terrible shape. So that's another one that will either be replaced. There are various things that happen there seasonally, but Barry, you can tell me, is it even heated? I'm not sure. Yeah, it's not.
It is not heated. It's a dilapidated building.
Right. But the piece of land is decent size. Right?
They're looking at that. There's also a lot of ledge over there. It was a quarry originally.
I agree.
But it also has similar issues related to traffic on Central. And traffic is regularly backed up in the
Right.
morning.
And none of that's going to get resolved until someone has the courage to propose traffic lights at the RTS. And that'll solve a lot of problems of people getting out of the RTS and getting out of a building if we build a building there. It's brutal getting on and off that road. And I think the only way to make it happen is to put a traffic light there. But I'm not sure anybody has the courage to do that at this point. But I think it's
So
a
can
great
I-
idea.
Yeah, I'd just like to pull us back. Hank, I think what we should do is, we can't solve the space problem here, but I think the issues have been raised, or at least the awareness of the previous study, whether it's parcel 74 or what, but let's go back to the schedule and just close this out. But I think DPW does need to come to the committee at some point and have a discussion.
Yeah, so we're scheduling it now for the
The
26th,
26th.
which
Yep.
will be the second meeting in June.
But should we have a preliminary discussion on the 5th?
We can, of the material, it's mainly programmatic material that they've completed.
Sure, but I mean, we're already talking parcels. I'm not suggesting that we can't solve it tonight. I don't think we can solve it the 5th, but it seems there's enough history here that we should probably start to bring some awareness to some of the discussions that are occurring.
Okay.
And understand if there is a level of input, we should preempt the 26th, such as parcel 74, or at least we're lining up to have a discussion on 26th of an output from the study.
Okay. All right, let me discuss that with Kate.
Okay. All right, thanks. We'll keep going on the schedule.
So climate action plan, I think we mentioned KLA, Kim Lundgren and Associates have started in their work. And we have discussions with them on different pieces every other week. Later in early June, there's going to be a working group assembled to look at how to begin to broaden the discussion beyond the Climate Action Plan Committee. And how eventually to take greater initiative toward greenhouse gas reduction overall. I think we've discussed previously that the municipality only produces about 4% of the greenhouse gases. And we can bring them, well, let's see. We don't have much to report from Kim from KLA as of yet. Some of you participated in some of the climate action plan sections. And we could put a summary, I could distribute a summary spreadsheet of that information if the committee is interested.
Okay, I heard George had
Well,
a question.
I want to ask a fundamental question. We build buildings. Why are we involved? I know I'm interested. I was on one of the previous subcommittees, but why are we as the PBBC involved in the climate action plan other than to provide input to them regarding things like reducing carbon footprint and things like that? We really, that's really not a project of ours, is it? That's to the
No, but-
chair.
So I believe, George, that it is not a project, but I believe what we need to be doing based on discussions in the last year is awareness of what is being discussed and incorporating that into anything that we're doing. So I think the idea is that, or the purpose is not that we have to govern the work that's being done in the client action plan per se, but it's what is going on in that, so we understand if there's asks within the certain building pieces, or for that matter, if anybody in the committee has any input, we are made aware of it. We can make that input. That's what I see. So that's why I don't think we see it on our agenda as consuming a large part of our agenda, but I think we need the awareness. That would be my view. I don't know if anybody else has another opinion or
I see
concern or
Michael-
ask.
Michael has his hand raised.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah, I would tell you that as we look at what the Climate Action Plan Committee is going to be doing and being asked to do, things like putting solar in all the buildings, looking at all of our buildings, whether they're when they're renovated, get as close to net zero as possible. There will be a push, I hope, in the fall, and I know Stephen wants to do it, and we've been pushing for this to bring the net zero. No, I'm sorry, the enhanced code, building code for the town, and all of those things involve buildings, and they're really, this is a group that, you know, we would hope is be supportive. I would hope to be supportive of it, but also needs to weigh in on those things. So it's something that, you know, this group should have a significant voice in, and hopefully in support of some of the things that the Climate Action Plan Committee is going to do.
Just an editorial comment then. Since we had the Climate Action Plan, first one put together, the only thing I've seen is a one-page document that basically said, this is what we're doing, but it wasn't much. And it looked like there was really no need for the subcommittees at all. I think they hired someone, right? You mentioned the name of the company. But to my knowledge, there really hasn't been much in the way of information that's been flowing or a plan that says where this whole thing's going. So I'm not really sure. I was on one of the subcommittees. So I'm sitting here saying, what the heck's going on?
Well, you'd have to talk to
Anyway,
communication, George, but the consultant is to now help them to put the plan together. The intent always was, quite frankly, that those committees were a kind of launch pad for those areas. They weren't intended to be ongoing. At least, again, this is how I'm just reporting how they plan to do it, bringing the consultant in, taking the input, then doing a lot of work with the community to actually develop the plan. So you're correct, George, in that I don't think anything's going to be happening in the next month, but the idea is that the plan will move forward and that they will want to put things like, you know, the enhanced building energy code. And so they're going to want to talk and hear from the PPBC on that as they put that into the plan in terms of what will it take to get it done and when will it get done?
And it will be impactful.
Very significant.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm aware of all that, but we're terrible at communicating. Let me just say that. Anyway, I didn't want to make it a big deal, but it's a little bothersome. I'm not really sure where the heck the whole thing's going, but that's okay. I'll be patient for a little bit.
I think the intent is to be able to bring something to town meeting a year from now with an update in the fall. And if the plan is together sufficiently, there may be a warrant article placed on the fall town meeting.
But I guess now I'm based on George's question and my response. And Michael, I mean, are we at a more formal stage of the plan and how it integrates into our activities?
Not until they actually develop the plan, but one would hope that they are, as part of the process of the consultant developing the plan, that
Mhm.
they will be coming back to these things. Because frankly, the consultant doesn't know the town and has to learn all of these things. I mean, consultants have done these plans in all lots of towns. There's the things that you do are, it's buildings, it's transportation. I mean, a lot of
Sure.
this stuff
Yep.
is
Yep.
formulaic, right? But now they have to figure out, okay, so how do we build a plan for Needham, and who has to be involved in it? And quite frankly, let's be perfectly honest, a lot of the stuff that's going to have to be done to achieve a climate action plan has nothing to do with the government. They're going to have to figure out how to get others to do them. They're about, people and buildings and, commercial stuff and, cars and transportation. But there are a lot of things that, there will be policy stuff or things that the town does, like build buildings and renovate buildings.
So
Yeah, and I
just
guess
one last question, and then I'll want to say goodbye. Just one last question. Is there a committee or a person that's working with the consultant that we hired to make sure that the plan becomes Needham's plan and not the consultant's plan?
Yes, Stephen Frail is the chair of the committee. Nick Hill is the vice chair. They're spearheading this. And I think, George, from what you saw in your subcommittee, was there's a very robust set of principles and directions that have already been laid out by over 100 towns in the Commonwealth. And we're trying to focus on those that have the biggest impact and the most likelihood of success in Needham.
Okay, and just those two people are essentially working with the consultant to put the action plan together?
The committee still meets on a monthly basis. So let's see, you were in the energy, so you were working. So each of the subcommittees was headed up by one of the committee members.
Okay. So.
Okay, so
We'll work on communication.
Is there a chance of getting a list of who those people are on the
Yes,
committees with emails?
Yes, it's on the town website. There's a climate action plan committee tab. So if you go onto and all the meeting notes are posted there.
Okay, I'll go on there.
And so all of that is available through the town website.
Okay, maybe I'll follow up with you after this, and over the next week or so, we'll just connect. I'd like to dig into this a little bit deeper and understand from a committee standpoint some actions that we should take, if any.
You might want to consider, Stuart, once the consultant, the consultant will work with the committee there on, the various public outreach and public, hearing communications. Seems to me that one of the groups that the consultant ought to meet with early on in his or her work would be the PPBC. Just because
I would agree, but I think we should just talk about what's being planned out there and see from my perspective, the chair's perspective is what's really going on, and then bring it back to the committee and then, see if there's, so that's what I'm saying. So maybe Hank, we can just have a conversation post this.
Yes, we'll do.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Let's continue. Close this out.
Well, yeah, the last one is the JCB solar is still stymied by the Department of Public Utilities. DPU has not responded to multiple requests from town council. And our consultant, Beth Greenblatt, is going to suggest that we just submit the application and state our rationale for being able to proceed, but it's DPU, as you know, has a lot of other things on their plate, including the MBTA. And they have been pretty slow on many fronts. So that's the last of the.
It's amazing that they accomplish anything. It's unbelievable. It's no wonder I never had any desire to be in the public sector, because the private sector gets things done. DPU, it's crazy that they can't answer the questions. Anyway.
In any case, so that's the update on all the projects. And before I bring up the Climate Action Plan Committee again, we'll have our discussion, Stuart.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Hank. That's it's important to go through this on a frequent basis so everybody knows where all the projects are standing. So thank you for maintaining this. Okay. With that, is there any, that closes out the schedule update on the projects? Our next meeting is June 5th. Is there any other business that anybody needs to bring up? I
Mr.
can't
Chair,
see everybody. If there's
One item.
Yeah.
I have on my calendar for June, it's hard to believe, we talked about it 6 months ago, but that is to discuss the chair.
the vice
election
chair.
position. Yes.
Yep.
So we'll need to, I would like to take that up in the next meeting or the second meeting in June, whichever you prefer. So it's
Good, yes.
anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I believe that with the chair and then the vice chair, the discussion point was to discuss a chair in waiting, a vice chair in waiting, I believe is what we were talking about. So I think that's a great thing. I have it on my list here actually to send out a note to various folks to this topic.
Mhm.
That's great. Thank you for bringing that up. Other business? Okay. With no other business, then I will call to close the meeting. Is there any objection from anybody? Okay. With that said, everybody have a great
Go
week
Cel-
and
Go Celtics.
go Celtics. There you go. There you go. Now you're on.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
See ya.
everybody.
Good night.
Catherine,
Yes.
once everybody leaves, everybody's dropping. The only question I have for you is,